You may have realized that being healthy feels different than it did in the past now that you're over 50. If you want to maximize your health potential but don't have time to read through overwhelming pages of Google links, this is the show for you. Welcome to Healthy Tips After 50. We love doing the research, finding solutions, talking to health experts, and learning what works and what doesn't. Now, your host. She spent the last 25 years dedicated to feeling her best and is here to share her best findings with you, Susan Rosen.
Hi, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen, and I have a special guest today, Jared Levenson, who is joining us to give us some information and tell us a little bit about his background and his podcast as well. We're exchanging podcasts today. Jared's podcast is called Eating Enlightenment. Did I get that right? Eating Enlightenment, yeah. And he has had an interesting journey from Buddhist meditation and schooling and getting in with the eating and just a lot, especially for his young age. He's been a lot of places and done a lot of things and has gotten to where he is and sharing that knowledge and that information with other people. So Jared, why don't you take a couple minutes and just add on to that?
Sure. That was pretty good. Thank you for introducing me and everything. I'm happy to be here. First, I want to acknowledge, I know your brand and business and platform, Healthy Tips After 50, and I'm about 30 right now. So it might be an interesting question to your audience. What can this young guy bring to the table and how can I benefit? And hopefully I can deliver on that premise today.
Yep.
But yeah, so me, kind of some interesting things about me. One, lived after college for 13 months in a meditation center. So no internet, meditation every day, meditation center, 13 months. So that was really interesting. I also got into meditation because my background was just coming from a family that was very thinking and not feeling. So I remember reading a book when I was 18 and it talked about emotions. And I was really lonely back then, just really just didn't know how to connect to people at all. And so I knew I was off. And so I remember reading this book and being like, that's why I'm off. I was very smart and analytical and I could think, but I couldn't feel. I was numb. And that when you're numb, you're awkward and you miss social cues and you just kind of get left out. And so I was like, that's why I'm left out. Emotions, that's really important stuff. What are those? And so this, not having any familiarity with emotions I think that's why I was drawn to meditation so much. It was there's something big missing in my life. And I got to do everything I can to catch up or become normal. So that's where I was coming from. And then, through years of therapy as well, let's be honest, and meditation retreats and even exploring the psychedelic scene, which I think psychedelics used responsibly can really shift a person's mindset in just powerful ways. So it's been a long journey, but I got into eating at some point. I think I connected with the eating field because eating, when people struggle with binge eating or emotional eating, that's a symptom. And, people try to fix the symptom by going on a diet or using willpower to stop eating so much, but it never works. And so people eventually, they start being willing to do some deeper emotional work. They start being willing to reconnect to themselves. And so that's been my journey as well. In terms of eating, especially around the emotional reconnection. I had a little bit of history with binge eating back when in high school as a wrestler, but it didn't define me as much as my struggle with reconnection did. So yeah, that's kind of just a little bit about me. And yeah.
So why don't you just do the little 10-second thing of what you're actually doing now?
Oh, for sure.
You've got a number of different irons in the fire, as they say.
Yeah, right now I'm an emotional eating coach. So if people are struggling with binge eating or emotional eating, it's really helping people. And whether this could be a clinical spectrum, or it could just be like, you can't stop thinking about food. You overeat a little bit too much and you're looking for like the basics, right? So I help people with like the basics of eating, as well as like emotional eating, which is where I think emotional eating in the sense like, you shouldn't eat food when you're upset, like you have a problem, but you can't stop turning to food when you're upset, or sometimes it's just even automatic. Oftentimes you're just like, wow, I'm eating food all of a sudden. What the hell? And then binge eating, which can be pretty severe, but the beautiful thing about binge eating is that you can see rapid progress in a pretty quick amount of time. That's where you lose control, you eat way too much food, you feel terrible afterwards, and that cycle just repeats again and again and again. And so that's how I help people right now. I'm at eatingenlightenment.com. And then there's the accompanying podcast, Eating Enlightenment. And I believe on my website, I'm offering like a behind the scenes interview of someone who, she had binge eating for 44 years and she got over it in about 5 months. So you really can make rapid progress. So yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. It is. It's cool.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
And it's measurable too. Like,
yeah.
It's like, how many times are you binge eating a week? Like 5? Okay. Then like 5 months later, how many is it? And it's like 1 or 0 to 1, or, it's like, oh shit, this is cool.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. No. And I can appreciate that a lot. I mean, I was a fat kid and a fat teenager and a fat college person. And it wasn't until I got into graduate school that I lost the weight.
Did you lose it through like learning more about like the basics of eating, or was it more like getting help for emotional stuff?
It was more about the doctor that I had at college, which was when they still provided medical services at Cal for students, which stopped many decades ago. But and I was a good 20 pounds overweight, maybe more. And she just said to me, she said, if you don't lose it now, I was like 23, 24, somewhere in there. She said, if you don't lose the weight now, you'll be fighting it the rest of your life.
Oh man, it's a harsh thing to say, but yeah.
Well, no, but she was, because as I'm sure you know as well, when you get older, it's harder to change your biology.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so she had me on a counting calories diet at that point.
Sure.
And healthy stuff. I mean, I wasn't eating bad stuff, and I dropped the weight, and I never 1 or 2 points I've gained a little bit of weight back, and then I looked at it and gone, nope.
Sure.
That off.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Some people, I don't know exactly what your background is with dieting and so forth. Sometimes people, it sounds like you're one of them, respond very well to some basic calorie counting. It's like maybe the calorie counting, you weren't quite sure on what's a good amount to eat, and then you start eating that good amount, and then you're good. Oftentimes people who really struggle with emotional eating for years, for decades, there's some deeper patterns going on where they really tried to lose weight in a severe way, and there was just some other stuff going on, and so sometimes this calorie counting advice can actually backfire. People can become like too obsessed with it, or they try it and then it doesn't really work, and then they feel upset that it didn't work, and it just can lead to this distrust, really a distrust around food, and a horrible relationship with food. And when you eat food a few times a day, it's like, that's not a relationship you want to be in. It's an abusive relationship, really, for a lot of people. Food is No,
absolutely. Yeah. No, I had as far as dieting and stuff, my goodness, I was on Weight Watcher when Weight Watchers started. That's how long ago it was. That's how old I am. Okay. They didn't have foods. They didn't have branded stuff, any of that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And I gained weight on it, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest,
Yeah.
and I was just like, okay, well, this isn't working. So I
Yeah.
stopped
Good
doing
for
that.
you.
I did that when I was in high school. My mother took me. That was,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, dieting and so
Oh yeah.
common,
Yeah. No, I was definitely a fat kid.
I'm glad you could see that it wasn't sustainable and you kind of changed courses.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I had grown up a little bit by the time I was in graduate school and had been away long enough to know that there were other things to
Yeah.
deal with.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, for about half the people, I think, they just
Hmm.
need to tighten up their regular eating, eat a bit more
Hmm.
balanced meals, get a little bit of it's something that is not, I used to be a personal trainer, but personal trainers never really talk about the feeling of being content, in your body. There's no
Yeah.
mind body connection. It's all about
Mm.
nutrition, and that great. We all need some basic nutrition. Eat regularly, eat fat, proteins, carbs, so you feel content. But oftentimes people are missing this part about feeling content. It's
Mm.
really important. Um,
Mhm.
anyways, so like about half the people out there, I feel like respond pretty well to just some pretty basic, little bit of mind body connection, little bit of basic nutrition.
Uh-huh.
They can really make some progress around there. But a lot of other people too, they've gone through so many different systems. They've gotten so many different pieces of advice from nutritionists and doctors and Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and blah 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 blah
Oh
blah
my
blah blah.
God. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then very rarely have they ever gotten like instruction on how to connect with their body, how to
Mm.
feel their body, how to
Mm.
notice their hunger, their fullness, their levels of
Right.
food satisfaction.
Yeah.
And when you're missing the body connection, I mean, this is why I resonate with the field. It's like, for
Uh-huh.
me, the social isolation, it's like I was missing something.
Yeah.
Well, I was missing the connection. I was missing the heart, the body connection. And I
Mm.
knew something was off, but here I was reading books about emotions instead of like feeling my emotions, right? And so
Yeah.
that's such a critical piece that gets missed out for so many different people. And then here's the key thing is that when they hear this basic instruction, like, oh, just eat a few times a day, balance meals, listen a little bit of hunger and fullness, they're like, yeah, I know that, but like they have all these thoughts in their head, and it really screws things up. All these
Yeah.
different rules and like
Yeah.
the
No, it's there's too much information out there now.
yeah.
That's, I mean, you go into a bookstore, there's as big a
Mm.
section on dieting as there is on history,
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can see what's selling,
Uh-huh.
but that means that people are buying multiple books.
Oh
Talk about
yeah.
being confused.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. There's a well-known phenomenon where people, so people, if you drive to the movies and
Mhm.
your car breaks down, you call a mechanic and you get the car fixed, right? You don't think that you broke the car, right? Like you say, oh, the car's broken. Well, humans, we never do that with diets. Like we think that we failed. Like
Mm, mm,
we don't ever question like the diets, right? So if we're
mm.
the failures, and then it's like we never question the methodology. So
Uh-huh.
that's why people go diet after diet. Oh, that diet didn't work, like I screwed that one up, maybe I can find one that I will follow,
Yeah.
instead of realizing, no, like you're missing the connection, you're not getting the
Yep.
connection, like everything is just
Yeah.
gonna be off a little bit.
Yeah. Oh no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think just the fact that there is so much, everyone thinks, oh well, which one is the right one for me?
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother thing to feel guilty about, right?
Hmm.
Is, oh, I can't figure it out, or oh, it didn't work for me, it must be me,
Yeah.
and not necessarily the diet. And it can be, everybody's food is different.
Hmm.
What works for them, what your body needs, depends on how much you're exercising, depends on so many different variables,
Yeah.
right?
Food history, and
Mm.
yeah, that's why this conversation about like what makes you satisfied,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like mentally set, like not only comfortably
Right.
full, like let's talk about what does comfortable fullness mean,
Yeah.
but what is mentally gonna like
Yeah.
satisfy you, because sometimes people eat, brown rice, chicken and broccoli, and maybe they do have some comfortable fullness, right? But
Uh-huh.
mentally they're like, they're not satisfied, and then
Yeah.
like they can't stick to it because
Hmm.
they're not satisfied. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. In fact, I saw on your website where you were talking about eating some fat
Yeah,
and that helping with
absolutely.
being satisfied.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, I think our society has gotten a little better about eating fat, because for many years it was just, oh my God, no, you didn't want to have anything to do with fat. You didn't want it in your
Yeah.
refrigerator. You didn't want it in your mouth, um, and
Yeah.
that's just so wrong.
That's where like the whole "I can't believe it's not butter" thing came from, like, because butter has fat, and like fat's horrible, right? It's like the end of
Yeah.
the world. Yeah, that was kind of, I think that was, I don't know, I've read a lot and I've talked to a lot of people. I don't quite like, I can feel those vibrations, sort of like
Mm,
I can feel that people kind of think that fat is bad, but
mm.
it feels like it was in the past.
I hope so.
Yeah. But I think there's still to this day like some apprehension around fat,
Yeah.
and you know,
Yeah.
and so
Oh, yeah.
like and here's some good sources of fat. Let me name them off the top of my head. Nuts, olive oil, yogurt. Yogurt and nuts are probably the main ones, but cooking vegetables in olive
Avocado.
oil, avocado, yep, avocado toast, yep. My avocado toast. Those are like the main ones, right? It's a little bit of
Hmm.
fat and some meats and stuff, but these are very, sometimes I don't like to use the word good, but I'll just use the word good. These are good sources of fat. They're going to
Hmm.
they're
Yeah.
going to really help you feel satisfied. And so,
Well,
that's not all
they are
bad.
good. Your body needs fat.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Not all of, not 100% of what you're eating, obviously.
no, sure, sure, sure.
Everything
There,
is in moderation, right?
yeah, no, I'm thinking in my head about this language about good and bad, and it's fine.
Mm,
Some of the like more like, I don't know, just like the newer stuff that's coming out, like for
yeah.
example, Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison. This whole they're really trying to help people rethink about everything, including so it's a language thing, the moralizing of foods. Like, is
Oh,
food really bad if you eat fat? Like,
right.
because we say like fat is bad,
Yeah.
like you're a
Yeah.
bad person if you eat fat, but they're trying to just
Ah.
help people be more conscious around, like, food is food. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not good or bad. Like, it can make you feel unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
It can make you feel pleasant, but like, are you a criminal for having a donut? Like, did you harm anybody? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, I
Yeah.
mean, the amount
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
beating people, the amount of self-flagellation that
Right.
people, they're like, they think they're bad because they screwed
Mm-hmm.
up their diet, and it's like, you're treating yourself like a goddamn criminal. Like, listen, you're not bad. Like,
Yeah.
like, so that's what I was kind of, I feel like, as
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
influencer in the eating space, I kind of have to at least talk about that a little bit, but I also think it
I
can go
agree.
way too overboard too.
Oh
Like,
my God. Yeah.
like, are we just gonna, I don't know. It can go too overboard. Like, oh, like, don't talk about good and stuff like that and bad. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. No. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. For
Yeah.
sure. And
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it's one of those ones you could have a conversation about for hours, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Easy,
Absolutely.
easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, well,
Yeah. Something
okay.
else. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go. No. No. Please go ahead.
One other, just an interesting thing. I think it's really important. Just the understanding that, not everyone is meant to have an Instagram body. Like, a lot of your body shape is determined by genetics, and so
Yeah.
I think it's like 1/5 of people have that naturally athletic thin shape. And if I could just spread one thing, it's like, if you have a naturally bigger body size, and that's fine, doesn't mean you're unhealthy, doesn't mean like you can't be happy or have respect or date or
Mm,
have energy or play with your kids, doesn't mean any of that. But if you try to fit your body into a smaller body,
mm,
you could fight that battle for years, and you could really hurt yourself.
yeah.
Like, you could ruin your life.
Oh, yeah. It's not healthy.
It's not
definitely not
healthy.
healthy.
And then it creates all these thoughts, and you spend a lot of money on diets, and you're not living. And this can go on for decades, and it's a trap. It's a real trap. I think that's why people keep buying book after book. They get into this trap, like, this idea that you can control your body appearance through willpower. It's a dangerous trap. And speaking of Weight Watchers, by the way, I have a graphic that I will share with people. It's from the Weight Watchers website. I believe it's weightwatchers.com/US/research, maybe center after that. I kind of forget, but pretty easily found. It lists all the studies that Weight Watchers has done. That's one of their biggest marketing points, is that they've done extensive research, right? So they have this huge list of studies. And then at the very top, there's this paragraph, right? And it says, people don't read the paragraph. They just see all the studies and they say, oh man, science. Well, the paragraph, to Weight Watchers credit, I don't know if, well, anyways, the paragraph says like something like, so the following studies have been cut off at the 6-month marker. Like they only measure up to 6 months. Oh. So it's like, yeah, this is on Weight Watchers website. Like, we have all this research that it works for 6 months. That's and then, bizarre. Any research after 6 months, we're not going to include that.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's because, of course, long-term diet science it's like, it's showing as clearly as cigarettes are as bad for your health. The long-term science of dieting has been shown that dieting is as bad for you, if not worse, than cigarettes. And the link is like crystal clear, but it's in the long-term research where that gets found out. And so of course Weight Watchers forgets to mention that, because their whole business model depends on people, buying the next program, falling off the wagon, repurchasing it. Yeah. So it's a weird thing that's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Well, they're a marketing company. They're not really a health company, even though they think they are.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So you've got your little intuitive eating book.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us about what intuitive eating is?
I'm down. Yeah.
And especially
very simply, it's just,
let me stop you for a second. Sure. And if you can also talk about how important it is, especially for people over 50, right? Because eating habits change a lot when you get older. You have different needs.
The one conversation I'm seeing, so intuitive eating in a nutshell is getting your body and how you feel back into the equation. Intuitive eating can sound very hippie-ish, right? Like, oh, it's intuitive and blah, blah, blah. But rest assured that when you start off intuitive eating, you start off with the basics, like we covered earlier. You're eating regularly, you're getting enough protein and fat. There's a basic meal schedule. It's pretty grounded in basic nutrition. But from there's a lot of exercises, conversations, explorations around like hunger, comfortable hunger, fullness, comfortable fullness, food satisfaction. That's like the first half of intuitive eating, is getting you to a relatively normal relationship with food. I'd say the other half is kind of advanced. I'll call it advanced, or maybe not advanced, but it's for people who really struggle with thoughts, really struggle with these rules, really struggle with body image. It's there's a lot of stuff, a very deep field that can help bring some healing to the profound shame, the profound patterns, these deep patterns. Like these deep patterns, they get in you, and they're hard to get out. And not that you ever get them out, but learning how to change, learning how to relate differently to these thoughts, learning how to not have all these thoughts in your head, like not judging yourself purely on your body appearance. So I think like those are some more nuanced principles, but they're in there as well. At the end of the day, it's trying to educate people about like, hey, this like dieting doesn't work. Like there's a different way. Like you can bring your heart back into nutrition. You can reconnect. They say to your intuition. Your intuition is like, listen, we didn't have scales in caveman days. How the hell did cavemen feed themselves, right? Like something in them, like kind of
Yeah.
guided them to eat or, stuff like that, to breathe, to live. So there's that intuition every person has in them. And so it's reconnecting to that, which is important. There's, it's very important. If you're missing that connection, it's like you'll try to fill that connection up with diets or emotional eating. This is, healing that connection is the root of this stuff. When you're missing that connection, you'll substitute it for something else. So that's intuitive eating, and why it's important over 50. What's coming up for me as I think about this is just like the people I work with that are over 50. And a big thing that they say is that they don't want their kids to diet. Like they know they've spent decades of their life, every morning hopping on the scale and feeling bad because their weight went up or whatever, went up by like a little bit. They spent decades and tortured themselves. Really. I mean, this is torturous. This is this is it's profoundly painful. And there is real, there's discrimination in our society for sure. But anyways, they know that their struggle with food, they don't want their kids to go through that. Like they know that a lot of people who are getting into intuitive eating when they're in their 50s are like, yeah, I don't want my kids to see me. I need to change my relationship with food because, I don't have a good relationship with food. I abuse it. It abuses me. I'm controlling of it. I overeat it. Like they're like, this needs to stop. Like I can't, if I want my kid to have a sense of self-esteem, innate sense of self-esteem, like I can't be having my self-esteem based on a freaking scale. If I want my kid to have their self-esteem be like, grounded in
and
who they are.
grandkids.
And grandkids. Yeah.
They're starting to get grandkids as well at this point,
Yeah.
So it's a whole new generation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, they kind of feel like maybe they screwed up a little bit with their own kids. and they don't want, or their kids don't want them to be screwing up the grandkids.
Yeah.
The same way. So, but there's just a lot of that. There's a lot of that involved, and modeling a good, healthy diet and way of eating and a way of living, exercise, and all of that is the best way.
Yeah, the Greeks, this word diet, there's two definitions. It was a Greek word originally, and it was like the way a community regularly eats. It was just like, your diet.
Okay.
And then kind of like the secondary word is like intentional weight loss. Yeah, just kind of interesting. Like the word diet.
Yeah.
It used to be a really beautiful word, and now it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of tainted a little bit. Or it has different meanings,
Yeah. Which is not unusual, right?
Sure. Yeah.
We're human beings are very good at doing that.
Yeah.
Things for our own means.
Yeah. And intuitive eating, one of the challenges of it is because diets are very simple. They're very clear. And when we're in this day and age where there's so much uncertainty, like COVID and fake news and fake science, and there's so much like, who do we trust? And there's just like this existential, like, what, fear, anxiety, uncertainty, paranoia,
all of
the above. Yeah. And so, diets can give real benefits to people. Like, and unfortunately, I mean, I'm, and I'm also, diets can give people a sense of clarity, a sense of definition, a sense of purpose. Of course, in the long run, they're divorced from the connection to your body. And so they end up failing in the long run. But in the short term, there can be a sense of social bonding. You're dieting with your friends. And, it's relatively easy to lose weight on a diet. Of course, you'll gain it back. That's the dirty little secret the weight industry doesn't like to talk about. But that's your fault. It's not their fault.
That's right. Absolutely. There's something
you gotta buy
do right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something you didn't do right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They place all the guilt on people and never. Yeah. It's really messed up.
But becoming healthy and doing healthy eating in the long run really gives a person, I don't want to say a feeling of ownership, but of purpose, and that you've achieved something.
Yeah.
It can be something that's really positive, and
Yeah.
you can look at it and say, hey, that's a part of my life that I know
Mm.
I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think that's
absolutely.
kind of a different way that is certainly not the way that most of these diet books and all that kind of stuff are going to do. They're not necessarily cheering you on, even though
Yeah.
it sounds like it.
Yeah.
It's more like the talk shows,
Uh-huh.
the morning talk shows, right?
Like they're kind of, yeah, they're cheering you on. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you're right too. Like healthy eating can be a really important part of self-esteem. And I
Mm.
mean, I think we all want to be healthy, right? I mean,
I would hope so.
yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
weight loss too oftentimes becomes the goal, like to
Mm,
look a
mm,
certain way. It's not really about health per se, but I think that's where people can
yeah.
be led astray. Like, they start focusing on weight loss to the exclusion of what is making me feel happy, what is making me feel satisfied,
Hmm.
what is working for me. Like, yeah, I always like to say too, the means have to equal the ends, right? If you're torturing
Mm,
yourself in a
yeah.
weight loss health, if you're torturing yourself in the name of health, well, listen, the means are going to catch up to you. Like if your soul has a wound in it and you're trying
Hmm.
to cover that wound
Yeah.
up by religiously following a diet, guess what? That little wound is going to bite you in the freaking butt and
Hmm.
down the line. And it's very sad. It's very sad because this wound can kind of, I don't know, it can really undermine people.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can
It's
really undermine people.
insidious. It's very
Yeah,
insidious. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this is about healing. Like this is
Hmm.
about if this isn't really about even, I mean, health is like even in some if lack of health is a symptom, right? If emotional eating is a symptom, in some
Uh-huh.
ways health is a symptom as well. This is
Mm.
about it's not about the food. It's about like how you're living. Are
Hmm.
you loving yourself? Are you
Mm.
able to be aware of how you're feeling and show up with and live a life of awareness? Are you
Hmm.
able to practice a life of honesty and you know be honest with yourself about your struggles,
Yeah.
and also learn to have a upright, a balanced, flexible, we'll say upright relationship with yourself, because so many
Mm.
times people, their relationship
Yeah.
with their self is judgment, blame,
Yeah.
not good enough. It's like if you're relating to life in that way, like life is going to give you lemons. This is about
Yeah.
how you're showing up in the world, and then that's where I think health comes from. It's an
Hmm.
orientation. It's a mindset shift.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would totally agree. I think that's why it's health and wellness, right?
Yeah.
Those two
Yeah.
things together are really what's important, and you can't have
Yeah.
one without the other.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and you're right. There's a basic
Yeah.
place where your health is,
Uh-huh.
as health and wellness. So
Mm.
that's exercising, walking, or whatever you're doing, um, eating right. I don't know. There's so many different, maybe meditation, which you and I have talked about. It
Mm.
could be, spending time with your family. It could be having work that you're enjoying, or doing something else that where you feel like you're giving back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different pieces to that, and not
Yeah.
everybody doesn't have to do all of them. But if you get all of that kind of aligned, everything else will fall in place.
Yeah. Yeah. Like filling up your soul through a variety of
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
I honestly think that's what this is about
hmm
more than anything else.
yeah. It's a
Like,
symptom rather than a
yeah, yeah,
cause.
yeah, yeah. Like, yeah, because yeah, a lot of the times people who struggle with food are they're people pleasers. And I'm guilty of
Ah,
being one myself too, like where you
me too.
where you don't say no to people. But also people pleasers, they're all about helping other people be happy. But then there can be a sort of a block, a resistance,
Yep.
a fear, a sense of unworthiness about doing things that make you feel good, like
Right.
that. And this is at a genuine level. Like if you
Yeah.
go on a walk or run on the treadmill because that's something you quote unquote should do,
Yeah.
if it doesn't reach the level of your soul, it's not going to really nourish you in that same way. So this is about really being upfront or forthright about like
Yep.
what truly feels good to you.
Yep.
And learning to we'll say eat those things, like eat, to consume positive things for you. Like what is
Right.
And for me personally, what this has meant for me is sleeping a lot more. Like I'm getting like 8+ hours of sleep. Like, and it
Good
feels
for
kind of
you.
weird. It feels kind of weird to
Yeah.
say that. Like I'm actually like sleeping well. Like what? Like and going on like little walks. I used to be obsessively an exerciser, but now like I just went on like a 10-minute jog this morning, and I'm going at like a 10-minute pace. It's not fast. And I used to be like, pushing myself, like, pushing, pushing. And it's, it feels kind of weird. It's like wearing a second skin, but it's like, yeah, I like this more. I like going on slow walks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, and that, what you were talking about is the main reason that, I've been kind of pivoting myself more towards being a coach and working with particularly women over 50, because we were raised to be people pleasers. We were raised to be last on the list.
Yeah.
And so we burn out really fast doing that.
Yeah.
And you can't help people if you're burned out. So, my message to women in particular is, and there's some men out there who do the same thing, but I think more so women, is that you have to prioritize yourself in your own life.
Amen.
You do that, you can help all the people you love. You'll have the energy to help other people that you.
Yeah. It's and I think sometimes people, they say like, I don't have time right now, but it's not the way. That's not a helpful. Well, no, how I usually like to talk about that is like, well, is not having enough time, how's that working for you?
Yeah. Right.
Like, is it working for you? How's that working for you? Like, if it's not working, maybe we need to try something else,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing it more isn't going to work.
Yeah. Like,
it hasn't so far. What makes you think it's going to? I don't understand.
I know. I think, I don't know. Like, yeah, I know what you mean. It's a philosophical question, but maybe like it kept you alive up until now. So, the brain can be really good at keeping you alive. So if running yourself into the ground and being quote unquote productive has worked so far, like the brain kind of wants to, continue with business as usual because you're still alive. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't see it really working well for people.
Yeah.
I just think, like I say, I think it's something that was learned.
Yeah.
I really think that, it's society, and I don't think it's as much with younger women, but I think they still get some of that. They're seeing their mothers modeling that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of them are probably smart enough to realize that
there's a lot of pressure on women, a tremendous amount for family and
that's right,
and
working.
career. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I know I totally burned myself out. I mean, I was just, it took me years to get my brain back, and I still have little patches that aren't quite there. But so
yeah. Do you think your journey is more like about unlearning or more about learning, or maybe both? But sometimes I think we got to unlearn
I
stuff.
understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think it's, I'm not sure I think unlearning might be an okay word. To me, it's more of a flipping.
Interesting.
It's kind of like, okay, you know what you're doing now? We'll do the opposite. Okay. Don't put them first, put you first. Just flip it.
Yeah, that can feel
Okay.
so weird.
Yeah, but
And in the beginning, yeah.
yeah, but it's
Mm.
kind of like, okay, but see, you're over here and you have no energy for anybody else.
Yeah.
Or let's put it another way, you don't have an energy for yourself, and because you're burning yourself out by working with everybody else, you don't end up really helping anybody.
Yeah. And then
So if
like
you
I
can
think
flip it the
people,
other way and be you first, that creates a whole lot of energy that can go
yeah,
out
it
to other
does.
people.
It does. Yeah, it
Mhm.
really lends itself. I mean, I think I work like 7 days a week. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying this to brag, but I
Mhm.
I used to some days I would just crash. It'd be
Mhm.
like spend the
Mhm.
whole day in bed basically.
Yeah.
And even it and those patterns are still there to a degree, but it's like not nearly the same.
Mm.
So I think when this whole like giving yourself to other people, sometimes we burn out, and when we burn out, like you're definitely not there. You're definitely not
Yeah.
being productive. You're stuck in bed, just sick or just depressed. You can't even get out of bed.
Oh
Like
yeah.
these are
Yeah.
real costs,
Yeah.
that's the result of not caring for not putting yourself first.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. And exactly. That's
Yeah,
totally where I'm coming from.
for sure.
It's
Yeah.
and it and I think you're partially right. It's one of those things where what you have to unlearn is
Mm.
your what's that? Your reaction, your immediate
Yeah.
reaction to things,
Uh-huh.
just your default, and you have to go, no, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
That's the unlearning, I think, part.
Yeah. And that like keeps coming up. Like the default
Oh my God, yeah.
reactions,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
It's like a
Yeah.
never-ending battle to
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely. And
Mhm.
particularly, for women over 50, we've got aging parents who
Mm.
need us more, kids that are growing up,
Mm.
husbands,
Yeah.
jobs, I mean, you name it.
Mm.
And now with the COVID-19, and the women are usually
Yeah.
the ones that are, taking care of the house, and they're taking
Mhm.
care of the kids, doing this, and,
Mhm.
oh yeah, honey, no problem. You can work late. I'm gonna, I'll take care of everything.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
well,
I always
you
like find it,
can, but
yeah.
when is he doing, or she? I mean, it could be,
Yeah. Those are
when
real
is the spouse
conversations.
doing that? Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think just because I'm not married right now, but
Mm-hmm.
you've been married for I don't know how long, but I know you mentioned earlier your husband and so forth, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, having
Oh yeah,
conversations
30
around
years.
like yeah, having conversations around, I think you could be in an excellent position to help women have those conversations, like
Mm-hmm.
you know about
Yeah.
having more equal responsibilities and expressing what you need, and those are real important parts about, I mean, just in life, but and
Mm-hmm.
with eating as well, there's usually
Oh
some
yeah.
that whole people pleasing thing, like
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And eating is an easy place to go and hide,
Yeah. Yeah, I
when you're
mean,
not happy, right?
yeah, in many there's this is one of the things I really help people see is it's like so after they're kind of, usually people like a little bit of structure, they like kind of
Mm.
basic meal plan, kind of give them a sense of
Mm-hmm.
progress and stuff, but very soon it becomes like, okay, so like what is, when you break the meal plan, like let's expect that you're going to break the meal plan or you're going
Mm-hmm.
to not follow it perfectly. When you don't follow it perfectly, like let's try to study that, what's happening, and like what benefits are you getting out of food, and like people, it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
food distracts you, it soothes you, it's safe, it's predictable, it never argues back, you have control over it's exciting, when you think about like the options you have, like there's tremendous benefits to emotional eating.
Mm-hmm.
And the first step is awareness on being clear of those, and also seeing how food can if your husband isn't listening to you, like
Mm-hmm.
that sense of rejection, like food
Yeah.
in some ways can listen to you in some ways, and like
Mm-hmm.
understanding that you're getting your need met through food, like
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of getting your need met through food,
Yeah.
that can really help people, like, oh, like, yeah, this isn't about the food, this is about something deeper, and like
Yeah.
And kind of like, shit, I got to take responsibility for this other deeper thing. But I
Uh-huh.
mean, that's it.
Yeah. Oh no, exactly. And
Yeah.
and then they can get mad at themselves too, because
Yeah.
I ate this bad stuff and I shouldn't have done
Mm-hmm.
that, and da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And it's,
Yeah.
they don't feel that they can say that maybe to their spouse or to their
Mm.
kids or whoever. So they take it out on themselves.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part.
Mm.
Like, when people,
Mm-hmm.
the hardest for me, because I want people to be happy and to make progress.
Right.
And it happens a lot of the time when someone, despite making progress, our conversations can be like, I can just hear how hard they are on themselves. And it's like,
Mm.
and my job is not to judge that or whatever, but just like,
Right. Point it out.
it can be, yeah, it can be, yeah, to point it out, but it can be hard listening to that, like it can be hard
Mm.
listening to that. And I try to absorb it and to model compassion and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that. I think it's part of the job of being a therapist, just like
Yeah.
listening to hard stuff. I think it's just like,
Yeah.
that's part of, my function in life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
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 But yeah, people beat themselves up, and it's really sad
Mm.
too. It really is sad. Like, so a big thing that I think is really important is just like, it's called growth mindset, or
Mm.
Carol Dweck, she came up with that word. It's a great word, but it means, one improvement at a time, one little
Right.
improvement. And so I think when people are beating themselves up, all that energy that could have been devoted to reflecting, like, oh, what could I do differently next time? What led up to that
Yeah.
event? What actually happened? Like, all that energy is spent,
Mm-hmm.
beating the
Yeah.
crap out of themselves. And it's like, if you just directed that energy and made a little bit of an improvement, like, you'd be good. Honestly, you'd be good. Like, it's amazing once people
Yes.
click, like once people finally, their belly,
Yeah.
first of all, people, if they're not eating, if they're not eating right and their brain is just like scattered, the eating can help bring a little bit of sanity back, that feeling of
It's
content.
chemical.
Yeah, feeling safe in your body, getting
Mm-hmm.
some content in your body, just grounded a little bit. That's very helpful. I think the next biggest thing is when people finally start to internalize, like, oh, instead of beating myself up, if I just can reflect about how it made me feel, what led up to it, understanding that if I don't eat enough food, I'm probably going to binge eat or emotionally eat.
Yeah.
If I don't do a little bit of self-care, if people can very clearly see that a lack of food and self-care leads to emotional eating, if people make that link,
Okay.
and then they're like, oh, so the next time I just do something a little bit differently, like, let me just a little bit differently. If people just get that mindset a little bit differently,
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
they can overcome emotional eating and everything. And to be clear, like, everyone emotionally eats. Like, you're never gonna not be an emotional eater. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of human nature. Huh?
yeah, it's human nature. Yeah. So
Don't fight that totally either, right?
yeah.
Because otherwise you
Yeah.
start beating yourself up about that too.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
totally.
Well, I guess we should probably wrap up. You and I could probably
Sounds
talk for
good.
hours, but
Yeah, sounds good. It's been fun.
yeah. No, it's been great, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. It's Susan. I'm back again to tell you that Jared has a really nice website and a podcast. They're both called Eating Enlightenment. So his podcast is called Eating Enlightenment, and it's on Apple and a couple of the others. His website is eatingenlightenment.com, and he has a lot of blog posts, a lot of information up there that you should find very interesting. And I will put all of this information in the show notes as well. And as usual, I will say that this is not medical advice, and you should not be thinking that I am a doctor, because I am not. If you need any medical advice, please go and see your own doctor, or go to some kind of emergency room if that is what you. I hope you all enjoyed this interview with Jared, and I am looking forward to talking to all of you next week.
This has been Healthy Tips After 50 with Susan Rosen. To stay on the cutting edge of the most effective health strategies, subscribe to this podcast and let us know what you thought of the show with a comment or like on iTunes. Visit healthytipsafter50.com for this episode's show notes, more resources, and free offers.